Melbourne real estate agents underquoting properties by hundreds of thousands of dollars are on notice.
Premier Chris Minns has all but confirmed new laws are on the way to crack down on underquoting in the fierce Sydney property market.
Underquoting laws are stupid. They completely miss the mark, with one exception, and I'll get to that. But first, underquoting laws are stupid because they don't stop underquoting, and here's why. I'll start with New South Wales. In New South Wales, a sales agent can quote the price guide in any one of three ways. They can quote nothing at all, they can quote one figure, or they can quote a range. Now let's say they put 1 to 1.1 on an agency agreement. They can quote nothing, or they could quote $1 million because they normally pick the lowest point in that range, or they could quote the whole range or a range within that, as long as there was no more than a 10% gap between the lowest price and the highest price. But guess what they're not allowed to do? They're not allowed to use terms like offers over or offers above or the plus sign. And it's the same in Victoria, which is ridiculous. It's an auction, for God's sake. Everybody knows that they expect the price to be more than the price guide. So what do our legislators hope to achieve by outlawing the plus sign? And that's not the only stupid aspect of underquoting laws. The law says the agent must keep a written record every time they quote a price. They have to note the property address, the price guide, the date, and the time. And best practice, says the Office of Fair Trading, is to include the buyer's name. Imagine this, you're an agent, you're in your car, you get a phone call, they want to know a price guide. You have to pull over, you have to get out your written log, you have to write down their name, the address, the guide, the time, and the date. And you have to do that every time you give a price guide over the phone when people happen to call you, and that's just not workable, because this could happen dozens of times in any one day. This is idiotic. They'd never get any work done, which basically means that agents can't adhere to the law. The Victorian laws have another stupid requirement. Every agent must give buyers a statement of advice, and that statement must include the price guide, 3 comparable sales, and the median price for houses and units in that suburb. Sounds great. So what's so wrong with that? Well, for starters, the 3 comparable sales is open to manipulation. I've seen one statement of advice where there were no comparable sales because it was a unit and the agent said that no recent sales had taken place within that block within the last 6 months. However, there had been other recent sales in the suburb that they could have used and reasonably should have used. And I've seen other statements of advice with completely irrelevant sales. This is just not good enough. And including the median price in the statement of advice has to be the most useless piece of data that could be given to buyers. And really, that's a topic for another video. At least in Victoria, agents must give a price guide, whereas in Queensland, it's illegal to give a price guide, which as far as I'm concerned is the pendulum swinging way too far on the other extreme. What's the one exception? It's South Australia, where vendors are required to put their minimum acceptable price on the agency agreement. And if that's higher than the agent's estimate, then the agent must quote what the vendor wants. In addition, the vendor cannot set their reserve more than 10% above their minimal acceptable price. I love this. It stops agents quoting less than the vendor will accept. Sure, it might kill an auction campaign if the vendor is greedy, but equally, the vendor can't be conditioned into selling. And buyers are getting something closer to the truth when they ask for a price guide. If you're buying at auction and you want a better understanding of the rules of the game, why not grab a copy of my book, Auction Ready? The website is getauctionready.com.au.